Prater The Ballgame, Idaho Sports Talk, March Madness, obviously in the air. It's going to be in the night for Boise State tonight in Las Vegas, 7 p.m. Coverage beginning at 6:30 at KBOI. That's 670 on your AM dial, where Bob Beeler and our guest right now, Abe Jackson, will be on the call. Abe Jackson, radio analyst, legendary player for Boise State, here on Idaho Sports Talk. What's going on, Abe? I bet you love this time of year, huh, man?
What's up, man? Yeah, this is the best time of year. It's kind of the third section of the season. You have the non-conference, the conference, and then you have tournament time. So I can't wait for them to get out on the court and play tonight.
Hey, what do you like about this matchup? I mean, just maybe for you personally, for the viewers, like for people who are going to listen to you guys, like what's special, what works well with Boise State and UNLV tonight, Abe?
Well, I think with UNLV, they have really one main guy, and that is Harkless. And the Broncos have shown pretty much all year against every team in conference, except maybe San Jose State and Amari Moore, that they're very good at making it difficult for the leading scorer of another team. And I think you could put Wyoming in this category and maybe Colorado State as well with two of their best players. But really, there's only one guy on UNLV who scares me, and that's Harkless. But Boise State's done such a good job over the season of taking away their best player or just making it real difficult that if they do get their average, they might have to take 18 or 20 shots to get there, which is also a win defensively. So I like the matchup because the Broncos' history in conference this year has been really good against the team's leading scorer.
Abe Jackson, former Boise State basketball star, with Bob Beeler on tonight's call. Sister station KBOI, 670 AM. You can get it at 6:30, tip-off time at 7 o'clock in Las Vegas. Abe, we hear that phrase all the time, taking away their best player, and whether it's Bill Belichick with the Patriots or in basketball. In this particular case, how do you take away the best player? What is Leon Rice's strategy to take away Harkless and make him go away?
Well, I think one of the strategies is that you make sure that you don't have bad switches, that you don't get one of your big guys on Harkless outside where he can take you off the dribble like a Milner or even really a Degenhardt, because Harkless is such a good scorer with the ball and off the dribble. So I think it's a hard hedge on ball screens, and then get back. Make sure that guard can get through those screens and get back there so you don't really have any of the mismatches for him to just take you one-on-one.
I'm curious about the psychology of this basketball team right now. They should be pretty confident. They should be pretty happy with where they are. It wasn't always smooth at the end of the season, but this team knows that. What do you think that this team is psychologically right now? How mentally strong is this team with 3 nights and 3 games to go?
I think they're in a phenomenal place mentally. I mean, they haven't played their best basketball probably the last few games of the season, but they found a way to get wins almost every single time down the stretch. So that bodes well for them mentally. And then, two, you won the championship in this building last year, and you got 4 out of your 5 starters that were on that team and that experienced the tournament, that experienced all the wins, that got the cut down the nets. And so if you want to talk about a mentally strong team coming in and some confidence, I don't think there's a team more confident than Boise State right now playing in this tournament.
Abe Jackson, radio analyst, on the call for tonight's game, 7 p.m. tip-off on 670 AM KBOI. All right, Abe, this comes before anything else. Boise State must do this to win and advance in this tournament tonight. What is that, Abe Jackson?
Well, I think in any type of tournament, you need your best players to show up and play well. And I think that comes down to Tyson Degenhardt and Max Rice. And so if those two guys can put up at least their averages, then I think the Bronco team's going to be just fine. And then also tournament time, rebounding. Every game can come down to it. We saw how much of an impact it had at San Jose State. So when you're in a tournament setting, rebounding is even that much more important.
What about Tyson Degenhardt? And I mean, he's been very consistent. He's been very good. But I think it's sometimes, and maybe this is just a bad sports fan, and some of us, myself included, we're just kind of on pins and needles waiting for him to explode. Is there any possibility, and is that even within his game, that Tyson Degenhardt comes out with a 30-point headline spotlight marquee type of performance?
I mean, I think it's in him, but to expect that, I think, is kind of ridiculous. I mean, he's the first-team all-conference player, and he's been putting up the same numbers pretty much every game. He's in the middle teens in scoring. He's rebounding and tough defense and a really, really good shooting percentage. So does he have it in him to get that big game? Yes, but I think the Broncos would take that. But I think the Broncos would also take a 15-8 performance from him.
Abe, anything else, like if something is to scare you about UNLV or scare Boise State about UNLV, outside of just maybe Harkless having a triple-double? Is there anything else that you've seen UNLV do and do well this year that might scare you a little bit if they do it and do it well tonight against Boise State?
Well, they have the ability to get hot, and they have Harkless who can get hot, and then Webster who can hit multiple threes. I think in a game he's hit 5 or 6 threes multiple times this year in games. And getting a game under their belt already as well for a team that really flows on really trying to get hot, that is a little worrisome. They have their feet underneath them. They've already played a game, and Boise State will be playing their first one. So that's always the argument. It's like, would you rather go out there in the first round and get your feet wet? I mean, I'd always like to have a bye, but in this second round game, UNLV's not going to be tired, and Boise State's going to go out there and hopefully be clicking early because UNLV could already be in a groove.
You mentioned one word that probably concerns some Boise State fans: tired. We all know that depth has been an issue this year. You can't really worry about that in these environments. You have to just play one game at a time and then worry about the next game next time. But how does Boise State pace itself? How do they, if they try to set themselves up for 3 wins in 3 nights, how do they approach that tonight without not compromising anything?
Well, I think you really just have to take it how the game's going. If you find yourself with a solid lead, then maybe you can rest the starters a little bit more. But like you mentioned at the beginning of that question, every game you have to play to win or you're going to be done. And so there's not really another game after this when it comes to this tournament. So if that means the starters play 35 to 40 minutes in this first game, that's just what they're going to have to do. And then in game 2 and game 3, if it gets that far, they're just going to have to dig deep. But, I think a little bit of a bright spot, though, is the last couple games, the bench has given them about 8 to 10 points, which isn't a lot normally for a bench, but for our bench, that's a huge, huge deal. If they can give us double digits in these games, that will take a lot of pressure off those starters.
Only 5 players in Boise State history have scored more points than our guest, Abe Jackson, who's now the radio analyst with our partner, Bob Beeler. You can listen to him tonight on KBOI 670. Abe, you've seen Leon Rice just about every game he's coached. You know him personally. What is it about Leon that makes him such a terrific coach?
Well, he's so personable, and I think that anyone who's met him can really say that is that he can relate to the players, and he also has just a really great staff too, and lets them do their thing.
Yeah,
Duryea and Burns, they know exactly what they're doing. They've been coaches for a very long time, and so he gives them kind of their own space to create their offense, to create the defense, and then they'll all collaborate together and go over it. So I think it's one that he's really personable, knows how to communicate with the guys, and then also he doesn't hover. He lets people do their jobs, and then they come together and talk about it.
We know Boise State's played UNLV a couple times this year. Down there, it was a pretty good runaway for Boise State. Up here, it was a 4-point game that was probably not quite that close as it got a little close toward the end. Do you anticipate a close game, a tight game? Do you anticipate the Boise State performance when they were in Vegas? How do you see this game going tonight, Abe?
Well, I'm not going to say that I expect them to shoot 72% and a half like they did in Vegas the first time that they met. But I'm pretty confident of where Boise State stands right now. If I'm going to put it somewhere, I think Boise State will get a win, and maybe it's at that 6 to 10 point range, which is close, but it's a solid win as well. So, it's really all about UNLV and if they're going to be hot or not, because they can get extremely cold too. And if they're cold, it could be a lot more than that. If they get hot, it could be a lot closer.
Hey, what should realistic expectations be for this bench? Bob Beeler said 10 points would be a good target. Where are you with the bench? It feels like, some games you're going to get no points. Some games you might get a few, but just your thoughts there on the bench.
I think 8 to 10. I think if you told me that they'd give you 8 to 10 every game in this tournament, I would take that immediately.
Okay.
But what I'd also take is some toughness inside. And Milner has shown that the last few games. The rebounds, the blocks, and really getting after it. So maybe he might not have any points or just a bucket here or there, but he's been playing a lot more physical inside, and that's helped too. So the bench can really help a team, not just on the scoreboard, but with rebounds and also just being a presence in the paint.
Let's just give ourselves the luxury of knowing that if BSU can win tonight, there's another game tomorrow. In terms of the matchups, breaking down the X's and O's, and there's been results throughout the regular season, would Boise State rather face a Utah State or a New Mexico tomorrow?
I would say Utah State. I think we match up better with Utah State. Those two guards from New Mexico and then Udeze inside, those are just three tough all-conference players that you're going to have in one starting lineup.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough either way. In Utah State, how well they play, and they're a much better team in Logan really than they are in some other venues. So I'm glad this Mountain West tournament's not in Logan.
Hey, what are you doing in Vegas? Don't you have outside of obviously working, don't you have a 5-month-old baby that you just had? And are you partying at all, Abe? Give us a sneak peek.
He's 6 months. His name's Carter. And my wife is fantastic. She has been very understanding this basketball season and has put in so much work to allow me to keep calling these games when she's been at home quite a bit by herself with our son. So she's been amazing. And that's really the only reason I'm able to call these games this year. So appreciate her so much.
Nice. That's a brilliant move. That's a varsity move right there. Hey, speaking of your work husband, how much time did Beeler spend at the pool today?
I didn't see him at the pool at all today.
What?
I don't know if he got out there. It might be tomorrow. If we get the win and it's not till a 9:00 game, I'd be seeing him out there. But hey, he might be seeing me out there too.
We'll let you get back to the prep, Abe, tonight coverage, you guys. You want real Boise State pregame, you go to 670 AM KBOI at 6:30, a half hour's worth before this thing tips off from Vegas. And it might even be a little more than that. Sometimes these tournaments take a little bit longer. I'm not sure if it matters or not. But Abe Jackson's on the call tonight with Bob Beeler. We appreciated your insight, Abe. That's why we wanted you on, man. Thank you. Well done.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Abe Jackson on the call. 6th all-time leading scorer. Name me the 5 Broncos who've scored more points than Abe Jackson, Michael Forrest Prater.
Tanaka Beard.
1.
Anthony Drimmick.
2.
Steve Connor.
3.
Did you say 4 or 5? I have to name.
There's 5. You got 3 of them.
And 5 is Abe or 5 is 6 is Abe?
Abe is 6.
So I need 4 and 5.
You have 1, 2, and 3, right? You said yeah.
1, 2, and 3 in order.
Yep, you have them in order. You need 4 and 5.
Derek Marks?
Yes, he's 4th.
Okay, 5th. I don't know.
He comes on the show all the time.
Kobe Carl.
Yes, there it is. Kobe Carl. That's an Abe Jackson is 6th on that list, followed by Chris Childs, Justinian Jessup, Roberto Burgesson, and then Derek Alston Jr. That's your top 10 list in Boise State men's basketball scoring history. All right, let's talk about this game. Boise State, UNLV. Anybody scared of this thing tonight? Maybe just their history in this tournament. Maybe UNLV on its home court, 208-424-9300. Even if you want to maybe give us your greatest song lyric of all time, call in and give us that as well. Let's open up some phones a little bit. But if anything scares you about UNLV, what is that boogeyman? We want to know. So give us a call. JP, let's talk more about this game when we come back on Prater the Ballgame, Idaho Sports Talk.